When Silent Hill was released in 2006, it arrived during a particularly dark era for video game adaptations. Uwe Boll was running rampant with films like Alone in the Dark and Blood Rain. Adaptations such as Super Mario Bros., Street Fighter, and Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within were still fresh in gamers' minds, though movies like Lara Croft Tomb Raider and Resident Evil were slowly beginning to turn the tide. These films weren't great, but they represented a step in the right direction. Still, for those looking for a movie that truly captured the spirit of its source material, Christophe Gans' Silent Hill almost did so to a fault. Unlike many adaptations of the time, Silent Hill at least felt like it was made by someone who knew the games. Gans seemed to understand the themes of the story and what it felt like to exist within that terrifying world. After the disastrous Silent Hill revelation in 2012, Gans returned to the project nearly 20 years later with an aptly titled sequel, Return to Silent Hill. Coming back to this world, Gans, who co-wrote the script with Sandra Vo and William Joseph Schneider, turns his attention to Silent Hill 2, one of the most beloved and critically acclaimed survival horror games of all time. However, while respect for the source material was what video game adaptations needed back in 2006, we are now in a new era where Fallout and The Last of Us rank among television's biggest shows, and the Super Mario Bros. Movie can earn over $1 billion worldwide. Having proven in 2006 that he understood Silent Hill, Gans now demonstrates with Return to Silent Hill that he has little idea of what a video game adaptation should look like in 2026. Return to Silent Hill brings Silent Hill 2 to the big screen.
The story immediately takes on an unintentionally comedic tone. We first see James Sunderland speeding down a windy road while listening to an incredibly bad song with lyrics that go, "I've been racing all day." He's introduced as a kind of rebel. The back seat is filled with art supplies, he's wearing a terrible wig, and he's smoking weed while driving. What a guy! As he turns a corner, he nearly collides with Mary Crane, and the two form a connection. Years later, Mary is dead, and James has become an alcoholic, unable to cope with the pain of losing the love of his life. Then, suddenly, James receives a letter from Mary, claiming she is waiting for him in the town of Silent Hill, the place where they once lived together. Despite all of his therapist's objections, James immediately heads to Silent Hill, only to find that it's nothing like he remembers. Ash-like material constantly falls from the sky. A woman named Angela tells him he will never find the person he's looking for, and strange creatures roam the streets. As James searches for Mary, he's aided by Maria, who seems largely indifferent to the state of Silent Hill itself. James will either find Mary or die trying. Return to Silent Hill is a very strange comeback for this horror series.
Return to Silent Hill tries to be both a terrifying thriller and a thought-provoking, elevated horror story, but it fails at both. Gans and his co-writers attempt to modernize the story by giving more prominence to Mary's previously unseen father and by leaning more heavily into the cult elements introduced in the first two films. However, Return to Silent Hill also wants to conclude the story in the same way as the game, which doesn't quite make sense given all the changes made along the way. For a film that aims to tell a more meaningful, heartbreaking story about loss, grief, and guilt, Return to Silent Hill ultimately falls flat. On top of that, the strangely artificial way the story is told makes it feel as though nothing carries any real weight. For much of the film, James is seen running through clearly computer-generated environments, fleeing CGI monsters, and trying to solve a mystery that, based on his memories of life with Mary, he should already understand quite clearly before even entering the town. For a story that desperately needs emotional depth, that depth is impossible to achieve when everything surrounding it feels fake.
Return to Silent Hill harms this video game horror franchise. Gans, Vo and Schneider, much like with the 2006 film, are constantly trying to recreate the game as faithfully as possible. However, for those familiar with the games, Return to Silent Hill feels more like an attempt to bring the story to life in the real world. Gans pays attention to certain details, working to make a few practical sets look exactly as you remember them. But for this story, that alone isn't enough. Return to Silent Hill seems to rely on its audience already knowing the game's story, which leads to some shortcuts. Characters enter and exit scenes with unclear motivations, and major events are passed over lightly, as if everyone watching already knows what's going to happen. Some sections are even shown from James's first-person perspective, but this feels like a gimmick rather than a meaningful choice. The film loves the game so much that it becomes a problem as it progresses. 14 years after Silent Hill Revelation, the most logical way to revive this film series would have been to retell the game's best story while working with the director of the first film. Instead, poor direction, terrible acting, and a world devoid of any real significance make Return to Silent Hill the wrong approach to bring Silent Hill 2 to the big screen. This powerful survival horror story has been turned into an ugly and absurd adaptation, perhaps a sign that we should never return to Silent Hill again. Return to Silent Hill hits theaters on January 23rd.